Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, our tips and tricks with Patrick DuChene. Today we're talking about getting organized and staying organized. One of the things that I know that plagues me is file organization, and it's a real big deal because it really slows you down when you're spending time looking for things. So we're going back to basics. We're going to help you be more organized and more efficient. We're going to talk about efficient file organization and how it's a crucial practice to maintain efficient workflow. So yeah, whose desktop looks like this? Mine used to. In fact, it wasn't quite this bad, but it was pretty bad. Whose desk looks like this? Lots of paper, lots of stuff, lots of clutter, right? So the idea is to have a clean working environment both on your desk and both on your computer to clear the clutter, to be more efficient, more effective. Whose desk looks like that? You got the coffee maker, you got every single device that you own all on your desk, ready to go. Just lots of clutter. This one isn't too bad, but still lots of stuff on the desk. What about something like this? Clean, serene, real comfortable, real nice, and lots of open space so that you can just relax and get down to business. Or the ultimate in minimal clutter. Or a real nice design studio, something like this. Or a desktop that looks like this. Mine still doesn't look like that, but this is something to work towards. Okay, so for today's agenda, let's look at some housekeeping. So we are recording this webinar, so anyone that either has to drop out or doesn't get a chance to be with us today, we are going to record it, and after the webinar, it will be posted to the DynaSCAPE website and sent out to everyone. So don't fret, it is going to be recorded so you can refer back to it. We are going to take some questions and we will provide answers. So there is a question box in the control panel of your GoToWebinar application that's running right now. So any questions, type them in there, and I'll be monitoring so that I can have a look at those questions and interrupt Patrick when it's time to get those questions answered. So today, a little bit of rundown on the agenda. We're going to be talking about the importance of file organization, what to file where, real examples of finding files quickly, and saving drawings in the correct folders for quick access, how to save files so that others can access them. We're also going to get into software versus hardware and how to speed up your computer for optimal performance. Some upgrades, hardware upgrades that Patrick has done to his own computer so that he has no choke points whatsoever. And then I'll talk a little bit about using DynaSCAPE Design in color on a Mac using Parallels. So I hope we've put together a solid agenda for today, and hope this will keep you entertained. So hey, Patrick, are you there?
I think we need to reconsider who gets to go first in these webinars, because I thought I was pretty cool by asking. I was going to start by asking everybody if they had this as their desktop. So I was beaten to the punch. And Joe, I think you showed me up. So I'm just going to put this picture away now. Okay, so Joe and I were talking over the winter about what our first webinar would be, and I thought, we both thought it would be a really good idea, especially this time of year, not to get into too much DynaSCAPE design stuff, because I'm sure everybody is starting to get to the point where they're ready to kind of change gears a little bit, maybe a little bit burned out or whatever. So I thought we'd get into some good organizational skills that Joe's already outlined. So as designers and any business people, most of us are using computers, and computers are only as beneficial as you allow them to be. So just like Joe showed and I showed, there's a great potential of having a very efficient system when you're working with your computer. This is not a very efficient system. This on the screen, the really only good thing about this whole screen is the background picture, which looks nice. But I see, I'm very fortunate to get to see a lot of people and train people and see their computers, and I see this all the time. Partially because some people may not be as organized as others, or they just don't know how to organize things the best way. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. So I'm running Windows 8.1. Windows 7 is a little similar as far as the desktop interface, but as a default on everybody's computer, there's going to be this little yellow folder, and that really takes you to a lot of the files in your computer. Like on XP, maybe Windows 7, I think it's called My Documents. All of these areas are areas of your computer that you can file things. You can put music in one folder, you can put your pictures in another, your documents. So I'm going to show you how I do my system, because I figured this out about a year ago, and it's the fastest way I've ever been able to access files. So let's pretend that your company is DDS like mine, and we want to set up a folder for 2015. So I'm going to go to my C drive, which if you go to your computer, it's this, OSC. If you double-click that, there's going to be some things in there that are just default, like program files, things that are installed on your computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder in this area, and I'm going to call it DDS space 2015. No, I'm not, because it doesn't like spaces. So I'm going to rename it DDS 2015. Oh, it's already up there. I made it early to practice. Okay, so here's my DDS 2015 folder. The Molly residence. Okay, so I have a folder made in my operating system C folder, or my hard drive. So now I'm going to select my libraries. Most of you should have a libraries tab. I'm going to right click on here. I'm going to create new library. And I'm going to call that library exactly what I called my other one in the hard drive. I'm going to call it DDS 2015. So now I'm able to access this very quickly. So once I select this, it's going to ask me to include a folder. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go find that folder that I just created. And what it does is it kind of links those together. So now when you go to access a folder, all you do is click your yellow folder, and you're in 2015 very quickly. So that's the first step. The second, how do we organize all of our clients, our job photos, our SketchUp models, our drawings, any information that goes along with clients? Because even on your computer, you want to make it easy to find this information, because the quicker you can find it, the faster you can move on to the next task. The other important part of this is if you're saving this and you're working at an office where there's a network and there's 2 or 3 designers, or there's multiple people in the office, everybody does things differently, so a system needs to be established to make sure there's a consistent way to save and access information. And what I'm going to show you is, I think, in my opinion, one of the best ways to do it. So when you have a new client, you're going to name the client. So let's say their name is the Lane residence. So Lane. So that's the Lane residence. So when you open up the Lane residence, you should have folders. You can create a new folder. I create my folders that say befores. I have a folder with drawings. I have a folder with, oops, delete this. delete, befores, drawings, rename it, SketchUp, models. I create a folder called plants, and I create a folder called proposals. So it might seem like a lot, but this is a very good way for you to keep things organized. So all of your job photos would go in the befores. All of your drawings you're working on could go in your drawings. Any of your plant packets, any images that you want to use for plant packets, you can put in plants. Proposals, very easy way to make sure all your proposals for that client is in there. SketchUp models, you can create a folder that's called renders, which I normally do. So if I do a SketchUp model, I render it in a rendering program, I'll put all the renders in there. So here's why this is great. So if I need to access a client, all I have to do is click this button, click lane, go into my befores, and I'm right there. I'm not hunting all over the screen for this stuff. And I know that there are plenty of people that may have screens like this and know exactly where everything is, but the goal is to try to get to a screen like this. Now there's a couple extra things that I don't want on here either, but you want a nice clean screen. So I can access everything probably quicker than the person with that cluttered screen. So other examples of what to put in these libraries are all your SketchUp components. These are all the DynaSCAPE Sketch 3D components that are part of Sketch 3D. So whenever I'm modeling, I can very quickly access all of these folders to get all of my plants. I have hardscape images broken down into EP Henry, which there aren't very many in there. Let me say there's only one. Light fixtures, logos and certifications, plant images, and this is just kind of a database of all the plant images that I use in all my jobs that you have kind of at your fingertips. And then textures. Textures is a big thing, especially if you're using like DynaSCAPE Color and you're using custom textures, or you're using SketchUp and you want to create textures in SketchUp like a brown mulch, or you can organize these too. So you can also over-organize things. I mean, you don't want to be clicking, you don't want to be getting into concrete paving stones and then clicking Techo and then clicking Mista and then clicking Harvest Gold and then clicking, that you don't want to click, click, click. So that's a very good way to just organize your files. It's one click of the button. You have all your clients, everything you need to access quickly. So that's pretty much it as far as the organization. You can, if you want to, and you don't want to have it under your libraries, you can just go into Documents. You could even, if you really wanted to, have on your home screen, just create. You could create DDS 2015 right here if you want. You can put it anywhere you want, and then you can open it, and you can create all those new folders in there also. So you could put client name, you could put the name, then start creating all your subfolders. So great system. So in case you're sick for a week, somebody else needs to jump on your computer, or you're saving files in a network, it's very easy for anybody else to find that information, and they're not hunting around. So where this is really applicable is, let's say you're in a DynaSCAPE drawing, and you have a shrub right here, and I zoom in on that, and I go to label that shrub. Let's just make that a winter gem boxwood. As soon as I go to find a plant and I click custom images, it automatically, because it's I don't know how it does, Joe could explain you this, but as soon as you use it a couple times, when you click custom, it automatically goes to all my plants. All I have to do now is type in winter. It brings up winter gem boxwood, and I can insert my image. So I didn't have to hunt around for that plant. Let's say we're doing a job for a client and we want to show them some examples of some granite. So I'm going to show, now this is a DynaSCAPE thing, but you just click your images. All I have to do is go down to my textures. I can go to my granite, or let's just say we want to show them a fabric. It's very quick. Slide the fabric right there. They know what kind of fabric it is. Let's say we want to show them what our lights look like. So we go to our light fixtures. Let's say we're going to use the Excalibur right there. So it's a very good way that you can find images really quickly to load into DynaSCAPE Design. If you're in DynaSCAPE Color and you want to create a new texture, when you go to create a new texture, it's very quick also when you go into your textures library to create any kind of texture you want. So the more organized and the easier it is to find things, the much quicker you're going to be able to move around your work. So that's enough with file organization. I wanted to get into something. If any of you know me, you know I'm really big into computers and software and hardware and making things faster and more efficient. And I thought a really cool thing to do would be just to go over some basics with computers and kind of what some basic parts are. I know Joe told me the other day that they field a lot of questions about requirements for running DynaSCAPE and SketchUp and ShaderLite and what kind of systems to buy. And you know, I go to Best Buy looking at computers, and I hear salespeople talking to customers about super big hard drives and everything else that just really aren't the most important thing. And there's a lot of stuff with computers that if you don't know what you're buying, you could buy something more than you need to, or something that's not a good enough system to support your needs. So I'm sure plenty of you feel like this guy who has a computer, but you're not real sure how to use it real well. So I'm going to get into some basic parts of a computer, and these are very important things. This, in my opinion, is one of the most important parts of a computer. It's the hard drive, where all of the information is stored. There's two kinds. Actually, there's a couple different kinds, but these are the two main ones. There's a solid state and a traditional hard drive. Solid state hard drives are the fastest drives out there. They are a little bit more expensive. The price is coming down. They're much faster. Your applications launch much quicker, so when you open up DynaSCAPE Design, it'll open much, much faster. When you're installing programs, they'll install much faster. They're more stable because they don't have moving parts, and they use much less power. You don't have any noise. They don't create any heat. And then there's a traditional hard drive, which you kind of think of, it's like a record player. And you know, the record players have two speeds, and well, I think two speeds. So and it's just like hard drives. There's a 5400, 7200. There are some other speeds, but these are the most popular speeds. The faster that disk spins, the faster your computer can access information. A lot of computers sold these days have 5400 speed hard drives because they're less expensive and they keep the price down. However, it is a little bit slower hard drive than like a 7200. Your programs will start up slower. It's just pretty much the opposite of a solid state hard drive. So, for example of how important this is, I just bought a computer. It was it had a 5400 speed hard drive. When I turned it on and turned on in about 15 to 16 seconds, I put in one of these Samsung solid states, and when I push the button now to turn it on, it's on in about 4.5 to 5 seconds. I mean, it's 3 to 4 times faster just by spending $130 and installing the solid state and taking out the other one. Now there's Geek Squad at Best Buy, and there's IT people who can do it. It's not very difficult. It's, you know your capabilities. So if you don't think you can do it, have somebody else. But for $130, it's worth its weight in gold. I will not use a computer without a solid state because you just get spoiled. Then there's the processor. The processor, or the central processing unit, that's the brains of your computer. That's where all the calculation takes place. These come in different speeds. I just showed, as an easy example, this is Intel. AMD makes them, Pentium makes them. There's an i3, an i5, and an i7. We've all seen those. And the i3 is just an entry-level processor. With a dual-core architecture, cores are kind of like highways. The more highways a processor has going in and out, the more information it can process. I recommend everybody, if you're going to buy a new system to do work, get an i5. It's a middle-of-the-road mainstream processor. It has dual and quad core, and my new computer has an i5, and it actually turns on and shuts down and opens programs faster than my gaming computer that I'm on right now. I can't explain why, but it does. And then there's an i7, which is a high-end processor. Most of them are quad core. If you're going to be doing a lot of shader light rendering, SketchUp modeling, a lot of multitask work, you want to go with an i7. So DynaSCAPE will run on any of these because it's not a resource hog. However, the more things you want to do at one time, especially if you have multi-screen or if you have multiple monitors going at one time, the more power you have in your computer, the better for processing. And then there's RAM. Everybody's probably seen this.
Hey, Patrick?
Yes.
Hey, I just want to interject on your processor slide, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so on the i7 processor, you're talking about a quad core.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, in the new developments, and just staying on the leading edge of technology and news, i7 processors are now available in 8 cores.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually doubled the amount of processing power from the quad core. These processors, while very expensive, are lightning quick.
Yeah.
So it's almost, if you have a solid-state hard drive and an 8-core processor, it's almost like instant on and instant off.
Right. Yeah, good point. So this is RAM. This really allows your programs to communicate with your processor. So RAM really helps also in the opening of programs. It's a little bit complicated how it works, but this is probably one of the most inexpensive ways to increase your computer speed. Not very often do I see computers sold with the maximum amount of RAM in them that they'll handle. So if you buy a new computer and you feel like it might not be fast enough, this is probably well, I always go with the drives, but this is a really easy way to upgrade it. The Geek Squad can do it, an IT technician can do it. I recommend, when you're really doing much of anything, try to have like 4 gigs of RAM. That allows you to kind of multitask and do what you want. Systems now, Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing them where you can get up to 32 gigs. I have 32 gigs on my desktop. I've got 24 on this. It's a ton of RAM. Some programs don't even use all that RAM, but it really helps. There's no bottleneck.
Yeah, it really depends on the logic board that you have in your either laptop or desktop and how much RAM the computer support. Higher end logic boards can support up to 128 gigs of RAM, but not that you would ever really get to this level. But the potential is there, and most laptops can support most high-end laptops can support between 32 and 64 gigs of RAM.
Mm-hmm. So the last part is your video card. And your video card pretty much takes the information from your processor and it converts that information and puts it on your screen. And these come in a lot of different speeds and resolutions, and this gets into some complicated stuff, but you know, when you're doing things like SketchUp and you're spinning a screen around and it's regenerating pixels, or you're a gamer and you have a lot of frames moving around the screen, this is going to definitely impact how well your computer handles what you're asking it to do. So my desktop is a very high-powered processor, 32 gigs of RAM, but it has a pretty junk video card because I bought it that way because I wanted to get a specific video card. And I run tests on it for like Lumion, and it does not perform that well. And the test tells me my video card, and I can't spin things around and move them around like I can with a better one like on my laptop. So these are important things to just keep in mind when you're buying a computer. You know, if you have any other questions, you could ask me. I'm in no way a super expert on this, but I know enough to make sure that I have systems that work really well for what I do. So,
yeah, hey Patrick, just a comment on the video cards. You know, when you're going out to like Best Buy or a computer specialty shop to look for either a desktop or a laptop, the real important thing is to look for a dedicated video card with at least 1 gig of video RAM in that video card. You see very often, you know, Ultrabooks, which are great for portability, but not that great on performance. You know, you definitely want to look for something that has some performance value in the way of a dedicated video card. The difference in the performance of the video rendering is night and day.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what Joe's talking about is a dedicated video card. There's dedicated, and then there's like, well, not dedicated, but if it's a dedicated video card, it will use all that RAM for video rendering. If it's not, I think it's like the processor will pull, or memory will be borrowed from that to use for other resources in the computer. So then you're not getting your full power out of your video card.
Yeah, what happens
Agreed?
with, they call them an integrated video card, and so what happens, the video card is built into the logic board, and it steals some RAM. So the RAM that Patrick was talking about earlier, it actually steals a portion of that and converts that to video RAM. So, you know, you're splitting the total resources that you have, which is why it's way better to have a dedicated video card so that you don't have to worry about stealing RAM, so that you can have lots of things open, or, you know, do some great remodeling or shader light rendering.
Yeah. So how do you know how good of a system you have? Well, here's an easy way to do it. If you go in your computer, there's a thing called a Windows Experience Rating, and you access that by you click the control panel. Now, Windows 8 does not have this. You have to do it a different way. But like on Windows 7 XP, you go to the control panel, you click on like System and something else, and you get to where you can run a Windows Experience test. And what it does is it runs a test on your computer to determine, it kind of tests the hardware. It runs your processor, your RAM, your graphics card, your hard drive through different performance tests to see how well it stands up to what it's testing. So this gives you a really good idea of what's kind of the weakest link. And on here, whatever the lowest score is in a Windows Experience Rating, that's what your base score will be. And as I was building this what's this called? PowerPoint yesterday, I found this really good quote by this IT guy it's perfect. And it's so true, where it says your computer is only as powerful as its weakest component. So you can have lots of RAM, and you can have a great video card, and you can have whatever, but if you have a really slow hard drive, or if you have a very slow processor, those are really going to kind of bog down the potential of everything else. I mean, it's like you could be in really good tip-top shape to run, but if you have like a torn AC, if you have an injury, it's going to impede you. So you're only as good as what that injury will allow you to do. So, for example, like on a higher end system, like this isn't bad here, but you can see right there with 5.9, the hard disk, the hard drive is the weakest part. So the solution would be go spend some money, get a new hard drive, whether it's a faster hard drive or get a solid state, and those numbers will go up to 7 or 8, and then your minimum score will go up, which means your whole computer is going to just be a better operating performance. So we all know computers come in different shapes and sizes. This is kind of a general scope of all of them. So you can get high-powered gaming laptops. That Asus is what I use for everyday use. You can spend $1,200 all the way up to $3,000 for those. Very, very fast, almost as fast as a good desktop. However, at 17.3 inches, I think the thing weighs like 10 pounds, or it's not the easiest thing to lug around. So if you're looking at portability, that may not be the best thing for you. Desktops, we all know what desktops are. Gaming computers, you can upgrade them. However, laptops, you cannot upgrade as easily as desktops. So desktops, obviously, you don't take those with you on the road unless you're driving in a car and you throw them in the back. But they're very easy to upgrade. Now there are what are called all-in-one systems, where the screen and all of the nuts and bolts are in one component, which is pretty cool. I mean, you can get a pretty nice system, and that's kind of, I'd consider that like semi-portable. Then, like for portable laptops, you can get them from 10.1 inches all the way up to like a 14 or 15. The one I got is this one in the picture. It's 13.3 inches. It's great on an airplane. It fits in a small bag. Very powerful for what it is. And then tablets and transformers. You can get these with nice power. They're super convenient. That little computer there, I had one of those. It's a T100 transformer. The screen comes off. It has full Microsoft Windows on it. And I was running DynaSCAPE design and color on that little computer, and it was $400. And had a USB for a mouse and everything. So there's a lot to choose from. There's a lot of price ranges, but to do something like all of us are doing every day, where we're doing drawings, and a lot of us are getting into the 3D stuff. Here's what I suggest. Get a minimum of an i5 processor. Have a minimum of 4 gigs of RAM. It's great if you can have about 8, because that will really help with rendering in SketchUp. Get yourself a solid state drive or a 7200 speed drive and a decent video card. So if you're going out to buy a laptop, you should be able to get a nice system that can do what you want to do for $600 to $900. If you really want to get something that's going to be a beast, you go with something like the gaming computers they're going to start around $1,200 or $1,300, and then you can upgrade them up to $2,000. More, $2,000 to $3,000, but that's kind of excessive. You don't need to spend all that. So here's another really easy thing. Anytime I'm training somebody I'll either see that the screen is a little bit faded, where it's not as bright as it could be, or things seem to be running a little slower. There are power settings in your computer that are very easy to change. So in your computer, if you go down to the battery right here and select the battery, you're going to see at the bottom right, it's going to say more power options. If I click on that, I can select what power options I want. I always go with my Samsung High Performance because it's part of the solid state setup. But there's Power Saver, which conserves energy. It helps save battery life, the processor and everything kind of slow down, the screen kind of fades out a little bit. Then there's Balanced, where the computer kind of, you know, it does what it says. It balances the performance with consumption. So it kind of just is a good average setting. Battery life isn't as good on that as Power Saver, but if you really want the maximum out of your system, you're going to find one on yours that says High Performance. As soon as you click that button, you're going to see your screen brighten and your computer will actually speed up. So on any desktop, run it on High Performance. If you use a laptop and you have it plugged in all the time, which I do all the time on mine, I have it on High Performance all the time. And I can tell if something happens and and I do an update or something and it goes back to Power Saver or Balanced, it slows down. So computer maintenance. There's two things you can do for computer maintenance. You can do a disk cleanup and you can do a disk defragmenter. They're very easy concepts. A disk cleanup literally just cleans up old files in your computer that you don't need. It creates space on your hard drive, and it allows your computer to speed up a little bit. A disk defragmenter puts all the information together in bundles and allows your computer to access information. So if you look on this, where it says estimated disk usage before defragmentation, all of those colors in an ideal world would be grouped together. But what's happening is, it's like if you're, what's an example of this? It's when your computer is trying to find information, the more different places it has to go to gather information, the longer it's going to take to bring to launch a program, to find a file. So the more consolidated all your information is, the quicker your computer is going to be able to access it, and it'll really speed it up. The good thing about solid-state drives is you don't defragment solid-state drives because they don't defragment. So these are features on all Windows PCs. Macs, I have no idea because I don't own a Mac. The last really important thing is to control what programs start up when your computer starts up. So I have a program called CC Cleaner on my computer, and I run cleanings probably, well, at least every day. But what I've done is all of the black items, the darker items, are programs that I've allowed the computer to open when it starts up. They're important programs that I want. All of the other things like GoToMeeting and color calibration, I don't need those to start up. The more programs that start up when your computer starts up, the longer it's going to take for you to be able to do anything. So what happens is all of these programs will be running in the background, and it's going to take resources from your computer. So you're not getting the full potential out of the programs you're trying to use. So it's like walking but moving your arms like you're running. It's like you're just wasting energy on something that doesn't need to happen. So Joe's going to talk a little bit about working with a Mac with DynaSCAPEs, and this is going to be good for me to hear too because I don't own a Mac and I get a lot of people asking these questions, but Joe does own a Mac. So I'm going to hand it to Joe so he can walk you through some of the differences.
Thanks, Patrick. So I'm just going to steal back my screen here. Okay. So we get a lot of questions about whether or not DynaSCAPE runs on a Mac, and what settings they should have, and whether or not they should use Boot Camp or Parallels. So I thought we'd take this opportunity to really go through and show what settings to use, how to set things up, and if you're going to get a Mac, what to look for. So first, we'll go and learn about this Mac. So this particular Mac is running OS X Maverick, which is the latest Mac operating system with the latest update. And has the latest processor, so it's a 2.8 gigahertz Intel Core i7. So Patrick had mentioned the i7, so this is a quad-core processor with 8 gigs of RAM. And so this number here, the 1600 megahertz, this is the number at which the speed of the RAM operates. So it's at a very high speed. So those are things you want to look for: high-speed RAM and high-level processors. Okay. And so here's Parallels. So this is the icon for Parallels. I've started it up. So it's waiting for me to start up Windows 8.1. But before we do, there's a number of preferences and settings. So here's the general settings for Parallels. Defaults to the virtual machines folder, which is good. It defaults to that. You can set up your shortcuts, which you can set Parallels to be used. So when you're in Parallels and using Windows, your Mac will operate as if it is in Windows. So all the typical Windows shortcuts will work, including your mouse shortcuts. And then same with your keyboard menu. So Control now works versus the Command key and those types of things. You can actually tell Parallels what to do when you connect a USB device. And so right now I have it so that it automatically connects to the Mac rather than Windows. You can also have it set so it asks you what to do when you plug something in. And then you get into some advanced settings. We don't need to worry about these right now. So then we'll look at configuring Parallels so that we can tell Parallels how much RAM, how much memory, and CPUs we want to have Windows use within Parallels. So in this case, out of a quad-core processor, I'm telling Windows to use 2 of those cores. And I'm telling Windows out of 8 gigs of RAM, I want you to use 3 gigs of RAM. And it also tells you what's recommended. So at the low end, 512, and at the higher end at 4. Because we have 8, I can set it to all the way to 8, but the Mac will tend to get very slow when that happens. So for me, this is ideal for working in DynaSCAPE Design or Color. So then we can get into some options. And so you can tell what happens when Windows starts up and shuts down. You can tell it to have the same view as last time so it remembers which applications were open and which were not, and what to do when Windows closes. You can tell it either to shut down, suspend, force to stop, or ask you what to do. You can also optimize. So here I have it set for better performance rather than longer battery life. Even though I am on battery right now, this MacBook Pro has an incredible battery. And right now I've got 4 hours of battery remaining with lots of stuff open. So one of the things I get asked all the time is around, how well will Parallels or Windows interact with the Mac? So a very important setting is to have your share folders for all disks. And this will give you access to everything on your Mac and everything on your Windows, whether you're in your Mac or in Windows. So that's a very important setting right there. I will also have it set to share my cloud folder. So I subscribe to Dropbox and Google Drive, and so I can access both of those accounts whether I'm in OS X or within Windows. And so this is also a pretty key setting here where you share your Windows applications with your Mac. So if you're browsing your design drawings files and you want to open it, you can double click on that within the Mac and it'll automatically open up Parallels and start Windows for you and open up Design. So it's an automated process with that particular setting. So coherence, what this means is that when you start Windows, it has no difference in the interface between the Mac and Windows, so it coheres the look, essentially. And you can choose applications to be full screen or not. And within the modality, so I tend to keep things mostly closer towards opaque than transparent, and then you get into some very advanced settings, so which we don't really need to worry about here. You get into your hardware settings, and you can have the boot order. So, excuse me, if you want your hard disk to boot first, it's just a matter of what piece of hardware starts up first. Here is a very key setting, and it's your video memory. So right now, I've got video memory set to 512. It's actually a bit low. I should set that to 1 gig. And 3D acceleration is set at the latest technology. And because this Mac has the Iris video technology and has a Retina resolution, that is also checked. This will use more battery life if you have it checked, just FYI. And so settings for your mouse and keyboard, your printers, so that you can synchronize your printers that you have installed on your Mac, so they'll also work in Windows. And sound and USB and Bluetooth, so all of those, and we can have automatic sharing of Bluetooth as well. Security, not so. I don't worry about this so much because it only starts when I'm on the computer, and I don't really store anything within Parallels. I store it all on my Mac, which I have security around. So let's do a quick start into this. So Parallels is starting up. I'm just going to log in. And so here's Windows 8.1 running with the settings that I had just applied. And so we run Design and Color and allow those to boot up. And so here we are. Okay, so we had a couple of questions. I'm just going to bring Patrick back. So that's really what I have to talk about with Parallels. We have a couple of questions around, actually we have quite a few questions. I'm just going to put Patrick on mute for a second. So I have a question from Christopher asking, what made you choose Parallels over others like Boot Camp and VMware Fusion? Great question. So the difference between virtual operating system software like Parallels or VMware compared to Boot Camp allows the virtual operating system software like Parallels and VMware allow you to run Windows in parallel with your Mac. So you can run them at both times. So if I switch between applications, like here's my email in Outlook, and you can see that I have the taskbar for my Mac, and I can open up all of my folders here. So I can access both and then access the stuff in Windows right? So I can see all of those things. I chose Parallels. I worked with Parallels for the better part of 10 years. I've had a Mac for about that long. And I prefer Parallels to VMware Fusion. What's really interesting is Boot Camp allows you to run Windows natively on the Mac. And in my opinion, Windows runs way more stable on a Mac than it does on any other machine, mostly because of the Intel-based hardware. And then one other person, his name is Tom, has a question. I use a Mac, have had problems with Parallels, especially with creating PDF and printing. Uses Boot Camp now. Have the problems been fixed with regards to Parallels? So it might have been an old version of Parallels you might have had, or in the settings, you may not have had the sharing capability between them. So perhaps check your settings if you choose to go back to Parallels instead of using Boot Camp, but just make sure you have those settings set up right so that both Mac OS X and Windows play nice together. And Diana has a question around assuming that the technology that Patrick was talking about, does it also apply to a Mac running Parallels? Well, the hardware is a little bit different on a Mac than it is on a PC. So on a Mac laptop, all graphics cards are integrated. They just have a different way of architecture. So in the new MacBook Pros, it's Iris architecture. They've got a marketing brand around that. So some of those concepts don't necessarily apply. Out of the Apple Store, the highest level of RAM that you can get is 8 gigs. So it's an aftermarket upgrade outside of the Apple Store, and you can automatically upgrade to a solid-state hard drive from the Apple Store as well. So hey, Patrick, someone was asking around your file organization, if you could run through those steps quickly again, just another quick 2-minute run through. We went through it pretty quick in the beginning, and just want to recap that again. So what I'm going to do is just transfer over the screen again so that you can walk us through that quickly one more time.
Okay. Okay. So, all right, if you want to take just quick notes, the first thing you do is you find where it says My Computer or OS, just like this. You're going to double-click it, and let's say you're Salimi Landscape 2015. So I'm going to create a new folder, Salimi 2015. Okay? So you can start putting folders right in here directly with your clients. But what I prefer is to get that set up, then go over to Libraries and right-click Libraries and type in the same thing again, Salimi 2015. So what you're going to end up doing is when you click this, it's pretty much saying, where do you want me to go to show you all of the information in that folder on the hard drive? You're going to say, okay, I'll tell you. I'm going to go to the OS, and I'm going to select what I just made. So now it's there. So if I get rid of this, and I go back and I need to get into Salimi 2015, it's right there. And now I can create my folders. Or if you want to and you don't want to do this shortcut version, you can just go into Documents. My Documents, you could put them in there. If you wanted to put all your pictures in your Pictures folder, you could put all your hardscape pictures in there too. But this, I think, is the best system because it's one click and it's right there on your little heads-up display. Hopefully that makes sense.
I think that makes sense, Patrick. We have another question, and it's mostly around using networked storage to save your files. And while DynaSCAPE recommends that your files be saved locally, you can store them in a network capacity. But where it runs into some complexity is that you want to have your plants and some of those other things that are crucial to the performance of the software to have those local. So I understand there are some companies that prefer you not to save anything on the C drive, and those you can actually save in a networked way. But when you go to reopen that, you need to be connected to that network. So there's some nuance around network storage. Just be mindful of that.
Can I add something to that, Joe?
Please.
Here's a perfect example of where Joe said, try to save. So all of these things, my hardscape images, my fixtures, my plant images, my SketchUp components, the more your computer has to go out and pull information and bring it back, it's going to slow you down. But here's another very important thing, and I think I've touched on this in a previous webinar. If I bring in a picture, like a light fixture, and let's just pretend, wow, that's big. Let's pretend that you were working from a network, and somebody went and they moved that folder in the network. If you go to your raster editor list, if you look at this, it tells you what it is. And just like in another webinar, this is why it's very crucial to name your files correctly so you know what they are. But if I click on File, it's telling me where that, this is its pathway. So your pathway might say, like network, it could be whatever that drive is, yada, yada, yada. So if your IT guy happens to redo things and this picture goes somewhere else, what's going to happen is this. If I go here and I go to my light fixtures and I take this fixture and I move it from here, I'm going to cut it. If I move it from here and I put it to there, oh, I can't do it while I have it open. So let me save this as test. So if I shut down DynaSCAPE and I go in here and I take this out and I cut this and I paste it, okay, so it's not cooperating with me right now. But the key is, if this moves and you open back up this drawing, that picture will not be there anymore, and you're going to have to go back and reassign where to pull the picture from. So when I was working in a company with a network, I would have all those images on my computer. I would save things on my computer, open them from my computer, but then when I closed them down, I would kind of back it up in the network. So it's a little inconvenient, but I have seen people have quite a few problems trying to do it, saving PDFs to a network, even opening drawings taking a long, long time because of all kinds of internals. And if your network's down, you're having problems too. So sorry about the long-winded reasoning, but that's a really good example of the importance of what Joe said.
Perfect. Thanks, Patrick. So those are the questions for now. Just want to remind everybody that GIE or the Green Industry Expo and Conference put on by the Professional Land Care Network is October 23rd and 24th in Louisville, Kentucky. DynaSCAPE will be there. We're at booth 9197. We'd really like for those that are planning to come out to stop by the booth. and visit with us and see what's new. If you have any questions, Patrick will also be there, and he's offering 1-hour sessions to be able to show you some of his workflow and you know, some of these topics on that we've been covering in these webinars. So thank you very much for joining us. We will be hosting another webinar in November, and we hope that you'll join us for that one too. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.